Evening. Greetings from Work Saloon here. We're going to show you how to make crepes, French crepes, but they're slightly modified given that we can't eat gluten in this house, as you may have learned in one of the other videos. So we don't do crepes with wheat flour. In addition, we're not really big on too many grains, period. We're bigger on eating greens than grains. So we were trying to find an ingenious way to come up with a crepe that wasn't as full of grains as a usual crepe. At the same time, we also wanted to try to find a way to utilize the almond pulp that comes out when we make almond milk several times a week. Because the almond pulp is quite good. It's raw almonds and it's just pulp, and you've got to use it for something. It's almost like a flour. And we just put it in the freezer, and so I took this out of the freezer for the purpose of making crepes. It's a little bit more moist than regular flour, but if you dried it out, it'd pretty much be flour because the juicer squeezes things so well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, and this is of course a nut flour. This is not a grain flour because almonds are nuts and they're very good, so good for your body. So we're going to take 2/3 these are a third cup measure here. So we're going to take 2/3 of a cup of almond flour here, and then 1/3 of a cup of tapioca flour, and that'll start off the crepe project here. I think we'll do the tapioca first, given it's a drier flour. So we'll use the measure for that first. And it's very messy, this tapioca. Be careful with it will dust everything it gets near. So on your clothes and everything else. So just be careful with the tapioca. Never fight your tapioca. It'll always win. So then I just kind of pack it into the cup measure here. Kind of get an approximate amount. So that there's about a cup, as in 1/3 of a cup. So we'll put this in, and then one more just like it. You see, this is a great way to use your almond pulp because, you know, we're not into baking bread and things like that. That just gets too involved for gluten-free. It's not important enough. And so, let's get one more cup measure in here. There we go. This isn't an exact science, as you can see, but it's close enough. So we'll stick that in there. There we go. And that does it for all the dry ingredients. Actually, we forgot one thing for the dry ingredients. We need a little pinch of salt, so we'll put that in right now. There we go. And then we're going to put that aside for a moment. Now, also, what we have here is basically a cup of warm water with half a stick of butter in it. I'll show you how much butter that would be. This is the other half, so about that much, right down the middle. And this is, of course, organic butter. Can't see it now, but it is. It also happens to be grass-fed. Organic Valley actually makes a summer grass butter that's made on more summer grass, which makes it more omega-3, which is great. So we'll just set this aside for the moment. And then we have these eggs here, which are locally grown, folks, farm fresh, of course, locally grown. But I can highly recommend Lonnie's Farm in Bordentown, New Jersey, because they sure make some great eggs. They make lots of greens at that farm, and you just know those chickens are living a good life. Look at these eggs. You got to be a pretty hardy chicken to make something like this to begin with. I mean, for Lonnie's, this is a small egg, okay? So, you know, talk about triple extra large here. I mean, these are huge. So, we're going to put in 3 eggs, and of course we bang them into a bowl separately in case there's a bad egg, although we've never had a bad egg from Lonnie's Farm. Let's put the whole egg in there. And the shells, they compost. Eggshells make great compost, as do coffee grounds, coffee grounds, and green, you know, green pulp and things from your juicer, stalks from your lettuce, what have you. There we go. So this goes into the compost pile, which in this case is the sink for now. And just rinse our hands here. But really try to support your local farms. They make, I mean, the eggs you get in the supermarket, forget it. You know? And these are truly natural omega-3s. These chickens forage versus the stuff you get in the supermarket that says omega-3 eggs. They've just been feeding them flaxseed is all they've done. They haven't been out on pasture really living the chicken life that they should be. Look at these yolks there. They're pretty nice and orange. Try to find some yolks with this color in your supermarket. That's a lucky find. They'll tend to be yellow, quite yellow. And this is actually how chicken eggs should look. So, as opposed to the color of butter, for example. Indoor eggs, fed grain, tends to be like the color of butter more. So, we're not going to bother you with noises, but what we're going to do is we're going to pour these together with the flour mix. We're just going to, given this is a little bit moist, we're going to stir that up first with the mixer. And then when that's done, then we're going to pour these two things in. And then we're going to get back to you. Until then, hello from Mark Salone. Okay, so just so you can see, we just went ahead and ran the hand mixer through the flour to mix it up good, the almond and the white flour. And then we're going to put the eggs in that we also went ahead and whipped up. Going to put them in. And then we'll go ahead and pour the water and the butter in as well. The dough is going to take another cup of water usually, but you will add it little piece by piece. So for now we're going to go ahead and mix this up, and then we'll get back to you when we're done with that, sparing you the noise. Alright, so here we are with the result of adding all the ingredients that we showed you. It's a little thick now, you can see, so this is when that second cup of water comes in handy. So we're going to add some of that now. And we'll stir. You could use the regular mixer for this, but I just won't be able to talk over it, so we're going with elbow grease for this one. I think we could use a little more water. You want a fairly thin batter for something like that. That seems about right. You can always keep the water aside and add a little more as you go, because sometimes these flours will absorb a little water as they sit there as you're baking the crepes, and so at some point you might need to add a little more liquid to make it more pliable again. Also, if you were to save like a batter for overnight and use it the next day, usually we'll have to add more liquid because it does keep absorbing liquid. So we'll go ahead and get these on the pan and check in with you when we're ready for that one. Okay, so we're in the baking process. Usually the first couple of crepes, until the pan heat gets adjusted, never turn out right. So we spared you that pain. Once you get the pan to a good height, good temperature, it's just elbow grease to get the job done. This is how high the burner is. If you're used to cooking regular crepes, we're going to cook these. You need to know that you want to go with a lower heat, because when you don't have the gluten to hold things together in the flour, then you need to, it's more of a baking process, so you want to have a little patience that way. And then you can make them as large or as small as you want, obviously. It's just the dough is not going to be elastic like you're familiar with. It's going to be more of a looser dough. It's going to require more of a baking process. As long as you think in those terms, if you've done this before, then you'll be okay. And then you just let it, basically low heat, baking longer, which is better for your almond anyway. You know, lower heat is better for the almond, so you know, doesn't get cooked too much. Since you're dealing with raw almond in here, so whatever we can preserve of the raw, that'd be great. You know, that's not really the objective anymore, but sure, if we can do it, great. So we're just going to let this sit here. We're not going to bother you with that until it's time to turn it. We'll show you what to look for, what signs to look for before flipping it, and then we'll flip it. Until then. So again, for those who are used to doing crepes, it's not going to feel as crispy on the edges because you're baking these crepes more. So you got to be careful kind of lifting it up. But once you get underneath it, you're fine. Boom. And then you just don't want to touch it. You don't want to scoot it around like you do normal crepes because it's not going to hold up. But if you look at the ones that we've already done, you see they're quite pliable. Once they cool off a little bit, they behave just like crepes should behave. So, no reason not to do it. So anyway, we're going to cook this guy and maybe show you one more, and then we'll let you play with it. So here we are. It's basically ready to take off, and you can see how it just depends kind of what edge you get in under, because it's a little softer over here, so you just kind of pick the crispier side of it, and no problem. So you'll get the hang of this pretty fast. There we are. And just get a little grease on every time, grass-fed butter in this case. You can also use the Indian ghee, which I have described in another video. It's Ghee. It's an Indian clarified butter, and they actually make it organic and grass-fed. There's a company that makes that. It's very delicious, and it's great for stuff like this. And if you are going to make them, if you're going to make savory, or mix them, make some savory and some dessert crepes, then you want to use butter. But if you're just going to do do a dessert crepes, you can also use coconut oil for this process. You just need to be a little careful about using coconut oil on something that you're going to put spinach or something on. You know, coconut oil can kind of travel through a little, we discovered. So if you want to do savory crepes, you may not want to do coconut oil in the pan. When you put it on, you have to be, again, you just need to play with it a little more. It's not as easy as a regular crepe, but you just kind of spin it on like that. You can't do that with this stuff. You have to be a little more delicate. As long as you have that patience, which most gluten-free people do, if they can have foods that resemble what they used to have. So, yeah, that's pretty good. I have not mastered going all the way up to the edge yet. Not with this dough. I won't do it. If I was going to try doing that, it would be with a real crepe pan that is about that high on the sides, so you can get in underneath it. But I don't think that's going to happen. Not with this dough. So keep them small, and if you're intimidated by this, just make them like that big. You know, and that's easier to get in underneath, and it's just made of the same stuff. So it's all up to you. Greetings again here from Work Saloon. We're going to be creating a spinach, mushroom, garlic saute. We're going to do it with olive oil, and you could eat this saute with pretty much anything you desire. We tend to like to put it in the crepes as a filling, as it comes out pretty nice. We used to put a little bit of cream in with it as well, or half and half, but we've since cut dairy because pasteurized dairy is a pointless thing to pay money for, so we just don't do dairy anymore unless we can get raw dairy, which in New York City is very difficult. You just skip it. So we're going to stick with the vegetable portion of this filling today, but usually for us it's a crepe filling. But again, you could easily serve it up next to a piece of chicken or something like that. So we'll get to it, cutting and cleaning, and we'll get back to you when it's time to get it on the pan. We are ready. I'll light up under this guy here. Again, when you cook with olive oil, you want to be low heat, because otherwise you'll oxidize your olive oil, which is high in monounsaturated fats, which is what you want in life. You don't want the canolas and the vegetable oils and all the polyunsaturated oils, because they are disgusting. They are bad for your body, and they are oxidized in the bottle, and they perfume them to make them taste better, and it's just something, a bad idea altogether. But monounsaturated, like olive oil, is great. So we're going to put a little garlic on here. I took about 3 cloves for this amount of greens and mushrooms. You can balance this out. This will shrink when it cooks, this will shrink when it cooks. This will shrink more. So if you want a bigger balance of spinach, then you just put more spinach in. But you can see how much this becomes. This was 3 fairly large mushrooms, which you can also eat raw, by the way. And it was just one little bunch of spinach, so you can just put more. I do use the stems too, because you know what, they're food. If you're paying for organic spinach, hey, if you have it growing in your garden and there's no problem throwing the stems away, then do that. Otherwise you can save the stems and use them for your juicing tomorrow, you know. We do that a lot. So there we are. That's about as much as you want for heat right there. I may even turn it down a little bit. I don't really want it to go crazy. And then we put the mushrooms on. And the mushrooms are going to cook a little longer than the spinach, so we put them on first. But none of this cooks for very long. And if you're like really into French cuisine and all, then I mean you could certainly saute them in butter. But it doesn't make a huge difference to me. I'm going to add a little bit more oil. As you can see, it's kind of disappearing. Because mushrooms like olive oil too, as it turns out. I will catch up with you a little bit when it's time to put the spinach on. Here we are, so you can see these are basically ready as far as, and you really want to cook the mushrooms until they're basically ready because the spinach doesn't go on for very long. Take a pinch of salt here. Again, salt is not bad for you. We all need salt to function. This is a full spectrum salt here. Mineral salt with all the minerals intact. It's like good sea salt. This is Himalayan salt, but try to avoid table salt. Try to get a full spectrum salt when you buy salt. A little pepper here. Stir that in. And this smells like wonderfully garlicky right now, just so you can get a sense of it. And I put the spinach in, which I don't dry my spinach. I leave the water on it, because then it basically will wilt a little quicker. Just adds a little steam factor. There we go. And then we just kind of work it in a little bit. And nobody saw that. It's food. And you could, at this point, if you wanted to, you could put the lid on for a little bit. You know, just let it sit momentarily in steam. And then that sometimes wilts the spinach even faster. So. Maybe a little longer than that. But I'll do this for a moment and get back to you. Let's take a look here. Yep. Looks like now the spinach has wilted the way we wanted it to. Just going to grab it here and give it a little trip through the oil mix. Get all the flavors mixed in. But that was, yeah, that was about a 10-minute job, including cleaning and cutting. So again, there you go. So if you have made crepes like yesterday and you want to use them today for a little dinner, then there you go. Easy does it. So we'll be dressing this up momentarily. Okay, so let's put this thing on the crepe here. Let's see. These are the almond crepes that we worked on earlier, and they're good for savory or dessert crepes. So this is a little demo of what one can do with a savory. It's kind of brutal not to use a spoon though. You're going to be nice and use a spoon for this purpose. So since again these crepes are not gluten crepes, they're almond and tapioca flour, we're going to only put this on half side. We're not going to try to get fancy and fold them a lot because they are more sensitive. So there's no need to destroy the good work we've already done. You put about that much on there, or whatever you want really. Like that. And then you just take one side here and fold it up. Voila. I think what came off, there we go. And then you could, you know, If you want to be cute, you can put a little something on top, you know, that sort of thing. Little sprig of parsley or twisted orange, whatever strikes your fancy. But that's a crepe for you. Easy does it. Okay, so we have some crepes ready here for savory the dessert demonstration. So first we're gonna try some coconut manna on one of them. Coconut manna is if you take coconut, like, you know, the white coconut, or theoretically you could take shredded coconut that you soak in water, that brings it back to what it used to be, and then stick it in something like a coffee grinder or something that spins really fast. You actually end up getting this pasty stuff at the end, and that is pretty much what you see right here. So coconut manna would be the equivalent of coconut butter if you compare making coconut butter to making almond butter, basically grinding up the meat until it turns into this smooth pasty thing. Second, we'll exercise one of these very useful Hawaiian chopsticks and see if we can get a purchase on this, because what happens with coconut manna is it settles, and you can certainly hold it under hot water, you know, and try to get things, but coconut will basically melt, you know, as long as you put it near some hot water heat source, you'll have it melting. But I did not want to stir this before showing it to you, because I wanted you to see what it looks like inside, because it separates, you know, you get just like you have with peanut butter or almond butter or anything like that, you have the oil collecting up on top and then the solids at the bottom. So, and once you get in there just enough, then it starts to give usually. So, see, now you start getting some of that effectively coconut butter coming to the surface. But this is extremely healthy, and it's not that expensive. Coconut manna is cheaper than coconut oil because, you know, you're using the whole coconut here. When you make coconut oil, you're pressing the you dry coconut meat, you know, in the sun or whatever, and then after that you press the meat to get the oil. And that means your meat isn't really being used when you make coconut oil. You just extract the oil from the meat, then you get basically defatted meat out of it. Which then I guess you could sell it as a low grade shredded coconut with low fat, but I wouldn't be the one buying it. Coconut manna, on the other hand, is basically using the whole coconut. You're getting the whole thing. So you just take coconut and grind it up until there's nothing left but this stuff. So I'm going to put a spoon to it now, and it's got a sweetness. It's got a creamy sweetness all to itself. So I wouldn't add any sugar or anything like that. And you can get it thicker. I mean, if you really tear it up from the bottom. I'm not going to go crazy right now. You get the drift. But I wanted you to see the mixing process, because that's what happens with this manna stuff here. So we're going to take a little bit of this here. And this, you don't have to be shy. You can take, if you love this stuff, just garb it on. There's no issues with this. There's no sugar in here. It's just straight coconut. So we're going to take some of this and put it on the crepe here. And since these are not gluten crepes, you've got to be a little more careful with them, just as far as applying things, because you know, there's just not that elasticity that you might be used to. I'll take a little bit more of this here. So what we're going to do, instead of rolling them or putting them in quarters like sometimes you do with crepes, we're going to go half. Now if you want to do something before you do this, you can certainly put on a little piece of pineapple, or you could grate up some dark chocolate and put on there if you like that combination. Just grab your little grater and have at it, you know. We're not going to go crazy with that right now, but this is the ways you can customize it to your needs. So there's number one option. So that was coconut manna. And again, this is totally healthy. I mean, you can eat this for breakfast if you want. There's no reason not to eat this for breakfast or as a snack and any time you want. You can feed your kids this stuff. There's absolutely no problem with any of that. There's no sugar in there. The only fats that are in there are good fats. You have almond, and you have coconut, and you have a little grass-fed butter that was made to used to make the crepes, and then you have some pastured eggs. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Number two, we're going to take some, in this case we have some organic bilberry fruit spread. Now you're getting into sugar. See here you have 6 grams of sugar per 1 tablespoon. Given that you should keep your sugar to 25 grams a day or less, according to Dr. Mercola, whose opinion on that I respect. This includes sugar and fructose, so you really don't want to be using more than a teaspoon of this, because you really don't want to be eating too much sugar. Thankfully, a little teaspoon of this is plenty of crepe filling here, so put this on. If you're going to eat a ton of these, I would put less, but we'll make this look nice for you. But I would put half of this for myself because there's plenty of flavor in less than this. We'll fold this guy in half. Voila, that was number 2. And of course you can take, like for example, if you like coconut milk on something with fruit like this, you can put a little coconut milk on it. You know, just dress it up a little, however you like to do it. Another option, again, you're talking sugar now, so you've got to do everything in moderation. But let's say you're having company and you've got to serve them something a little cute. Put a little bit of coconut ice cream on top. And you can probably get one of those little scoops that has a nice shaped round ball of ice cream that comes out the other end, but like nothing bigger than that. Like maybe one of those that makes butter. You have the little scoops that make round butter, spherical thingies. You could get one of those and use it for your ice cream and then put a little thing right on top. You could also make smaller crepes, make them in a small pan that makes them circular, exactly, and then you can do it that way. And you don't have to mess with trying to make them quite as big, because that's the trick with this crepe dough, is to make them like really beautifully and round because of the dough. So that was number 1 with the manna, number 2 with the bilberry fruit spread, and then number 3 we're going to put a little applesauce. Now this is again organic applesauce, fat-free, of course. They all have to say that. Pointless. No sugar added. That's what you want to know. So all you have in here is fructose from the apples themselves, and sugar is here. If you take a half a cup of this, in a half a cup you'll get 11 grams of sugar. So it's not a bad thing to put on a crepe. So again, I wouldn't say you should go to town on this stuff and eat a whole jar, but you can be a little more generous with yourself on this than you can the jam. But then again, why do that? Why not just be modest? Let's do it this way. Treat it just like jam. There we go. And then this is really nice too, this applesauce. You can actually put a little coconut milk inside too. I've done that before. Just like that. Boom. There we go. And you kind of have it coming up a little bit. You've got to be careful with these crepes. Don't move them around too much because they just can't handle it. And then of course you could also dress this up with a little bit of, it's really just a hint of this stuff. And if you don't want to put sugar, like if you want to avoid this ice cream stuff, then what you can do is take some of the, there's a video that shows you how to make what I would call coconut filling. It's basically step 1 of our coconut milk process. So you can either watch the coconut milk video we have, or you can watch the coconut filling video we have, because the first step is the same. It's when you take soaked up shredded coconut and you dump it in your blender and you basically blend it to smithereens, you get this wonderfully thick, pasty shredded coconut, just ground up shredded coconut. It tastes wonderful. And you can take a scoop of that too and put it on top, or put it in, even inside, It's just a matter of what flavors you like. But again, stuff like that you can just eat. You can eat cups of it. It's not gonna hurt you. So these are the 3 different ways of dressing up these gluten-free crepes here with almond flour in them, and they make great desserts. And you figure out how you want to make them as far as size and stuff. And if you want to make them pretty and glorious, then find a little pan that's perfect for the purpose and have at it. But we're going to sign off for now. Well, maybe we should try one just to make you jealous. Let's see, what does the cameraman want to try first?
Let's figure out eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Well, how about some apple?
Sounds great.
Does that sound right? Take a little bit of this. Cause see, we always feed the cameraman in this house. That keeps him happy.
Mm.
Oh yeah, this had the coconut milk in it too. Homemade coconut milk. That's good.
Yeah.
So there you go. We're going to sign off from Mark's Saloon. But we wish you lots of fun making healthy desserts, and all for now.